Arthur Brooks, what's going on?
Hey, man. It's great to see you, Max.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It was my fourth appearance.
I think so, yeah.
I'm a regular.
You are a
on
regular.
Genius Life. Yeah.
And I quote you all the time.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, you might know that. I know you listen to the show, which
I do.
Makes me...
I'm a fan of the show. It comes to me automatically.
Yeah. But what was it? I was watching a video of you. I think it was like on Harvard Business Review or something, and you were talking about imposter syndrome and how people who are super successful. It's like people have this perception that imposter syndrome somehow goes away.
Right.
It diminishes the more successful you become. But you were saying that the people who are genuinely successful and don't have dark trad personality traits, they all have
Totally.
like it never goes away.
Yeah, and part of the reason
it should be there.
Yeah, and people who are really good at what they do, they see what they're not doing perfectly, and they assume that these are big glaring holes in their work, and everybody else is going to see them, and they focus on what they're not good at as opposed to what they're really great at, and hence imposter syndrome. It's not an indication that something's wrong with you. It's not even a pathology. It's just part of life, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something that I've felt at times.
Of course, you probably feel it pretty consistently. You're at the top of your trade. You're doing super well as a podcaster, and you're bringing science and ideas to a big audience. And you know what you know, but you also know what you don't know.
Amen.
And so the result of that is you're like, oh boy, that's a void in there. And other people aren't seeing it, and they see that you're a humble guy, but you don't see it the same way that they do.
Yeah.
You're more critical. You're more self-critical, which is actually one of the reasons that you're excellent.
Always.
If you weren't self-critical, you'd suck. You know?
Yeah, your lips to God's ears. I'm very diligent about checking over my own work.
Yeah.
I watch my own podcasts. I'm very diligent and exacting about the kind of about the content that I put out.
Yeah,
I
of
always
course.
have been.
Because you believe in excellence. And sometimes you make errors, but you don't want to.
Correct.
You don't want to just throw ideas around thinking, sure hope that's right.
Yeah. I aspire not to make errors. Well, I'm very excited to celebrate your new book, The Meaning of Your Life. I know that you're always so deliberate with your word choice, and one thing that stood out to me about the title of your new book, you didn't call it The Meaning of Life. You called it The Meaning of Your Life.
Right.
Why?
The reason is because we all have to ascertain the meaning of our individual lives. It's not that you can open up some book someplace or find some tablets buried someplace that show you the meaning of your life. On the contrary, the meaning of life itself for each individual person is a journey. It's the process of discovery. And my understanding of the meaning of my life is different than your understanding of the meaning of your life. That's what it comes down to. It's the meaning of your life is what it comes down to. And that's what this book is all about. Look, I didn't know that necessarily, but 5 years of research on this topic has led me really very strongly to believe that there's individuality in this thing. Now, we all have to do many of the same things to find it, but what we find is going to depend on who we are.
You argue that meaning hasn't disappeared necessarily, but many of us have lost the ability to perceive it.
That's right, and this has been a big revelation for me. I mean, I'm a behavioral scientist, but I've been very interested in a neuroscience concept of late. I've had to retrain in a great deal of neuroscience over the past 7 years since I've been teaching the science of happiness at Harvard. And one of the biggest theories in neuroscience right now is something called hemispheric lateralization, which is a fancy way of saying the two halves of the brain do different things. It wouldn't have to be that way. The two halves of the brain could do the same thing in duplicate or in mirror form, but they do different things. And this is a very important theory. It's actually been shown clearly in empirical evidence as well from a guy named Ian McGilchrist at Oxford. He's a neuroscientist and psychiatrist at Oxford University. And what he shows in his work is a lot of the complex problems of life. By that, I mean the problems that we understand but can't solve. Those are processed in the right hemisphere of the brain. All the mystery and the meaning, all the fun, all the weird stuff. The football games that you can't simulate and find the score, so you just have to watch as if you're playing on the team. Your love that you have for somebody, your romantic life, which is like you'll never solve it. It's just mysterious and meaningful. That's all right hemispheric activity. And that's where all your why questions of life emanate. The left side of your brain is the complicated side. That's the tasks, the analysis, the technology, the stuff you put into Google. How do I create an app that finds a pizza for me at 10 p.m.? How do I, How do I find the best toaster available on the internet? That's all left side stuff is what it comes down to. The problem in modern life is that more and more and more we have these right side why questions that we're trying to answer with left side complicated tools, and it doesn't work. And the result of that is that life has become effectively a simulation. A simulation. Simulated life is one in which it's like, I want to solve dating. I want to solve friendship. I want to solve work without leaving my house. Zoom work. I want to solve the sense of accomplishment. Gaming. One area of life after the other is being solved on the left-hand side for needs on the right-hand side. And the one thing you can't simulate, Max, is the meaning of life.
Man. So how did we get here?
Well, we got here because we solved a lot of problems, little problems, creating much bigger problems. And here's a classic case of this. And by the way, we do this all the time as humans because we're geniuses, right? The genius life, as maladapted, is to solve little problems and create bigger problems. Like, we have pain, and so we create analgesics, but we want them to be heavier and stronger, and we want to get rid of absolutely every part of our physical pain. And pretty soon we're using narcotics, and 100,000 people die of drug overdoses, et cetera. Classic case. Here's another example. We hate boredom. We hate being bored. But being bored is incredibly important, and Mother Nature doesn't care if we hate boredom, and for the longest time, there's nothing we could have done about it. I mean, your great-grandfather's life was pretty boring from day to day, actually, but his brain was working the way it was supposed to. When you're bored, you actually stimulate a part of the brain called the default mode network, which is a set of structures inside the brain that makes you think about meaning. It makes you think these really big questions. But boredom is it's boring. And so it's kind of uncomfortable. So if we can find some way to get rid of it by distracting ourselves, well, we'll do that. And guess what? We finally solved that problem. It's called the phone in your pocket.
Now we're addicted to them.
We're completely addicted to them because we don't know how to be bored at all. Now we have this complete aversion to boredom. You're at the stoplight, and it's like, this light's really long. Right? You're going to walk across the street as a pedestrian, and the light is lasting too long. I've almost run people over because they're looking at their phones as they're crossing the street, so they don't have to be distracted so they don't have to actually pay attention to this mundane task of walking down the sidewalk. It's insanity.
You're describing me.
All of us. It's you, me, everybody, and we've all gotten addicted to it. But it's interesting, actually. You've had Dan Gilbert on your show before?
No.
He's a psychologist at Harvard. He's the world's leading expert on boredom. He's a great psychologist.
Wow.
And he has these experiments where he brings undergraduates into the lab because they'll do anything for $20 basically, and Harvard undergraduates, and he puts them in a room where they have nothing to do for 15 minutes, except he gives them a little key fob, and if they touch the button, they self-administer a painful electric shock. He wants to see whether they will choose pain over boredom. 25% of the women shock themselves, 2/3 of the dudes.
Wow.
2/3 of guys. Because we can't be bored. We can't handle boredom. One guy shocked himself 190 times in 15 minutes. And that guy got kicked out of the experiment for being a sick and twisted freak. But you get my point, that's one of the things that we hate, and this is one of the reasons that we do this. Second is the technologization of life. The ultra high use of left brain technology. That's the engineering culture. And that's what made America rich beyond our wildest dreams, is basically making everything into a complicated problem to solve, thus neglecting the complex life and mystery that actually makes up meaning. So what all we're doing every single day is figuring out how to solve more and more complicated problems. What's everybody talking about? AI. Right? As if AI is going to answer the question, why am I alive? And for what would I give my life? And, what does it mean to be in love? And you're not going to answer those questions with AI. People are trying. I know people who are using it as their therapist, which is completely insane. These are right brain problems. You can't solve them with left brain technologies. So everything from economic incentives and efficiency to complete distraction, to addiction to devices, to trying to get rid of boredom. It's all pushing us into the left side of our brains, plus the culture of hustle and grind and efficiency. And we're abandoning the right side of our brains, which we actually need to find the meaning of life. So this book, that's the first part of the book. But this book is basically, okay, what do you do? There's one thing to identify a problem. And this book, the reason it took me 5 years, because I found the 6 ways that people can actually turn on the right hemisphere of their brains, live kind of in a new old-fashioned way, and in 6 months find the meaning of life.
Wow. Okay, so I want a Cliff's Notes for that.
That's it. Yeah. So how do we do it, right? But if we don't, woe be unto us. That's the bottom line. That's the reason for the depression and anxiety epidemic that we see today. And I got on this beat because I came back to academia. I'd been gone for a long time. I'm an old school college professor, but I left for 11 years to run a company. And when I came back in 2019, it's like a plague had gone through my academic village. When I left, people were happier than an ordinary life, like falling in love, making friends, experimenting with crazy ideas. I come back, people are not falling in love. People are lonelier than they've ever been before. People don't want to hear crazy ideas. They're getting like trigger warnings and cancel culture on campus. And depression has tripled, anxiety has doubled, and they're lonelier than they've ever been before. I'm like, So now I'm like behavioral scientist Sherlock Holmes. That's how I got on this beat. The number one predictor of depression and anxiety today, especially for adults under 30, is saying my life feels meaningless. It's the meaning crisis. That's what sent me in search of, okay, what is meaning and where do you find it? So I've got a good definition for actually the meaning of meaning. So we know what we're looking for. And then where do you find it? Which is not, Italy or the beach. It's the right side of your brain. Then the big question becomes, how do you open up the right side of your brain? It's been closed for a long time.
What is the meaning of meaning?
Yeah, so that's something that a lot of psychologists and philosophers have looked at forever. But the best definition of it is the answer to three questions. The meaning of your life is three why questions. It's never what and how, because what and how are left brain stuff. That's like technical engineering solutions. Why is the deep stuff, right? Number one is the coherence question, which is why do things happen the way they do? Why do things happen the way they do in life? You have to have a theory of that. You have to have a belief about that. For me, it's like religious, but for me, it's also scientific. I think things happen the way they do because God wants them to, but also science is real, right? Some people answer that with respect to unusual methods like conspiracy theories. That's when you see somebody really super strong going down the rabbit hole of conspiracies on the internet, that's a cry for meaning. That's somebody who lacks meaning in their life and they're trying to answer the coherence question. So the wrong way to deal with that with the family members is to say, you idiot, trust science. That's not going to do it. That's actually going to make it worse. What you need to do is to offer something really beautiful and good. You need to offer something positive, which is a different way to understand coherence. So that's number one. Why do things happen the way they do?
I just had an insight. I always have like such interesting insights when talking to you, but it's sort of like, it reminds me of, I was having this conversation with, I believe, Michael Pollan a couple of years ago about his book, How to Change Your Mind.
Right, about hallucinogens.
Yes, and we were talking about the brain, how it works on this continuum between order and disorder.
Yeah.
And how you go too far in any one direction. You've got either depression and anxiety or schizophrenia.
Right.
And humans are pattern seekers, right? Like that's one of our defining traits. And it's sort of like if you are, and we're each of us are somewhere on this continuum, but ideally we're like in the middle, somewhere about in the natural distribution, we find ourselves in the middle. But if you're too far and you're looking for patterns where there really aren't patterns, that's when you become a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. And if you're not pattern seeking enough, then you just you defer, you outsource that capacity entirely, and you're just like, trust the science, authority worship.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
It's really cool.
No, that's the filter is either too high or too low, and it's absolutely true. The interesting thing is that the highest performers, they don't tend to be right in the middle. The highest performers tend to be mad scientists, which is that they're high affect people. They're even hypomanic, which is a subclinical kind of mania depression. It's a subclinical kind of bipolar. And most entrepreneurs, for sure you're a mad scientist. You're a mad scientist, which means that you have high highs and low lows. All high performers have this. They're taking a bite out of life is the whole thing. You don't want to be like, steady as a judge, right? You're going to be into it, which is why you do what you do. But that has a cost. Of course, that has a really, really strong cost. Anyway, so that's the first one is coherence. The second is purpose, which is not the same thing as meaning. People use them interchangeably, but purpose is a subcomponent of meaning. It's a macronutrient of meaning. And what purpose is the answer to the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing with my life? Why am I doing what I'm doing right now, like today? And you have to have answers to that are about goals and direction. You have to be going in a particular direction for a particular reason. That's what purpose really is. Because if not, you'll be going in circles, right? I find like cruises profoundly depressing, right? And the reason is because you're not going anyplace. It's a conveyance and you're on a boat, but you're going in circles. It's so dumb to me. Now, I get it that that's not the point. So people are going to be writing into the show notes going, Brooks needs to take life a little bit easier here. But if your life is like a cruise that's going in circles, it's going to feel meaningless. Meaning requires that you have purpose. And that's why am I doing what I'm doing to get an answer to that. The third is significance. Why does my life matter? Why does my life, and to whom, right? Why? I mean, why does it matter that I live or I die? Who cares? Now, people who are religious have a big leg up on this because God cares. People who are married have a big leg up on this. People who have kids have a big leg up on this. But if you have really close friendships, that really helps a lot as well. So this is mostly about love, is what it comes down to. So those are the three big why questions. The three parts of meaning are coherence, purpose, and significance. And when I'm talking to people, because I have a whole bunch of protocols on this, that people can go to my website and actually take tests on where they are in their meaning journey, that I will be able to see where they're weak. And then I can start doing interventions with respect to which dimension where they're weak. It's kind of like, I mean, you're a real authority on how we eat. And I know your thinking has changed on macronutrients and diet a lot, which makes a lot of sense because you've evolved in your own and fitness journey. And when you meet somebody who's really, really out of whack, you know it pretty quickly when you talk to them about how they live and how they eat. And then you turn the dials a little bit. And that's actually how you should think about meaning too.
So true. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to stay versatile. You have to stay limber. You have to stay open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so coherence.
Yeah, coherence.
Significance
and purpose.
Purpose.
And so, if I find somebody who lacks purpose, somebody who they really have a good sense of why things happen the way they do, like the mind of God, for example, and a good sense of significance. Like, my family loves me. They really matter. But I got nothing going on, man. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm studying. I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to set a bunch of really tangible goals in their life, and they're going to start to feel meaning because I was able to turn the dial on purpose a little bit. And they needed the dial turned on purpose.
Is another way to think about it, meaning is the why, purpose is the what?
Yeah, well, not really, because they're all why questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing is what it comes down to. Though generally how and what is, okay, now what am I going to go do? Once I've answered the why question, the what and how is what to do. But don't go do things before you know why. That's Simon Sinek's big point. Our mutual friend Simon, you've had Simon Sinek on the show, right? Yeah. Simon and I, and we all go way back, right? Simon's most, where he really got famous is the book Start With Why. Right? Don't start with how and what. And this is a big mistake that people make about their lives. They're all how and what, even the way they understand themselves. So if you said to me, hey, Arthur, tell me one thing about yourself. And I'm like, I'm a professor. That's a what answer. That's a deeply, and this is what people do all the time. They define themselves in terms of their job. This is the reason they feel crummy is because they're defining themselves with respect to a what answer. Or a how answer, how are you living your life? It's really a why question. You want to get to know somebody really quickly. It's like, ask them a why question about who they are. And that's really the deep stuff. Start with why, like Simon says. That's exactly right. That book, Start With Why, is a book about meaning. Fundamentally, it's a book about meaning. If you start with why, you'll find meaning.
What's your why?
My why is to lift people up and bring them together in bonds of happiness and love using science and ideas. I want a happier world. I want more love in the world. I think God put me on earth to bring more love and happiness to people. I think that's why I exist.
It's beautiful. You're doing it.
I'm hoping. I mean, it's like there's good days and bad days, right?
You're human.
I'm human. Exactly right. What's your why?
My why is I think I aspire to ease suffering in the world because I've seen suffering and I know suffering so intimately. With what I experienced with my mom.
Right.
And so you can't forget going through that experience. And it's just left such a scar on me. And so everything I do is really filtered through that lens. Like every sentence I publicly put out, whether it's in a throwaway Instagram caption, in my stories, it's all through the lens of, does this have the ability to transmute some truth in some way that ultimately might play a role in reducing suffering for somebody who's receiving it?
That's interesting. It's quite Buddhist in this way too, by the way. And so the whole idea, I asked the Dalai Lama one time, because I've been working with him for the past 12 years on many, many projects. And I asked him why he's sometimes critical of Westerners who want to become Buddhist or even who meditate. And he said, because often Westerners meditate for the wrong reason. And I said, what's the wrong reason? Is there a wrong reason? He said, yes. They meditate because they want to feel better. The reason you should meditate is so the whole world feels better. Wow. And so that's Max Lugavere's work is so the world will feel better, as opposed to Max feeling better. And when the world feels better because of your work, you start to feel better too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, there's joy in the work for sure. I know that's one of your the four.
That's transcendence.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's transcendence. Yeah, exactly.
The 4 tent poles of friends, work, family, faith.
Faith or transcendence.
Right.
Yeah. You transcend yourself by serving the world. That's one of the ways that people do that who aren't even necessarily religious. But if you transcend you by looking outward at the world and serving the world, life becomes much better and more meaningful. You will use the right hemisphere of your brain if you stop looking at yourself, trying to solve your own problems, and you start doing things that actually spread love and happiness to the rest of the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a gendered aspect to this? Because when you were describing the fact that society has become so hyper-fixated on solving problems, it reminds me of when I've had like relationship experts on the podcast, and they talk about, one of the big disconnects between men and women in relationship is that sometimes women, when they offload their problems, where men default to is like, okay, how can I fix these problems? Right. Whereas women, what they typically are seeking, is what I've heard. I'm not a woman, obviously, so it's not like through lived experience, but it's like they want an ear, like a shoulder to
so that's it. It's women are naturally better at right hemispheric activity. Women have more developed, as a general rule, right hemispheres, which means that they're better at mystery and meaning. They're better at understanding without describing. Men, they tend to have more developed left hemispheres, which is what they're, guys are about fixing stuff and why. And, I've got 4 grandsons, and it's like you put on a video of construction equipment building stuff, and they're like, that's awesome, right? And that has very much to do with hemispheric lateralization and the fact that men and women have different general strengths hemispherically. That's one of the reasons that men and women are so good together. When they're good together, they're so good together because they complement each other. And strong marriages. I have a very strong marriage. I've been married 34 years, and my wife has a more developed right hemisphere than I do, and she's my radar. She's an emotional radar for me. She knows what's going on all the time. She's like tuned in. But that's right. It's one of the big mistakes I make, and almost every husband makes, where your wife is like, she's bummed out. It's like, what's bothering you, honey? What's bothering you, honey? And she'll start to tell you, and with 2 sentences in, you got it. And then you start telling her what to do. It's like, wrong. It's like, shut up, and let her say what she wants to say. Because in so doing, what she's doing is she's actually, it's a murky world, that right hemisphere. Your language centers are on the left hemisphere of your brain, which means if you can articulate it, it's not quite it. And so they need time to actually try to get these thoughts out, and it's still not going to be perfect. And you're going to find typically that your wife will feel a lot better when she talks about something, even without you solving her problem. And when you cut her off and try to solve her problem, that means you're not listening, which is to say that you're not connecting with her in the right hemisphere, and that's what she needs you to do.
It's so hard to wrap your head around that.
I know.
As a guy.
I know. It is, but it's also the thing that women do that drives guys crazy, is that they don't respect that left hemispheric activity of fixing stuff, of doing admirable, amazing things, right? And so you can do something that's just really, really cool and good, right? And she won't appreciate it. Because she's not working in the same hemisphere. I mean, you'll stand and look at the architecture of a bridge in its utter majesty, and that's not going to appeal to her in the same way. Something that you've built, something that you've done, won't appeal to her in the same way. And so we have to learn to appreciate each other. Complementarity requires a love of difference, is what it comes down to. The most successful couples are not that. They're compatible insofar as they've got a base of similarity, but they're not that similar. Similarity, a little similarity goes a long way. Pretty soon you're dating yourself, which is not hot. You want somebody who's really different from you and who completes you, but that requires that you have this basis of mutual respect and mutual submission to each other's strengths.
Amen.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between meaning and happiness?
Meaning is part of happiness. So happiness has 3 parts too. Those are the the components, the elements, the macronutrients of happiness. Happiness is made up of satisfaction, of enjoyment, and of meaning. So enjoyment is not pleasure. The pursuit of pleasure doesn't lead you to happiness. It leads you to rehab, typically. And that's the reason is because pleasure is just tapping a primordial part of the brain over and over again, the limbic system of the brain. Usually there's two little pleasure centers called the ventral striatum and the ventral tegmental area. You've heard about this before. You tap it, you're like, and if you get into the business of pleasure and tap them and tap them and tap them with, whatever, pornography, cocaine, something like that, your pleasures will manage you. And that's the road to ruin. But if you add two things to your pleasures, which is to say people and memory, you'll move the experience into your prefrontal cortex, the executive centers of your brain. That's called enjoyment. And that's when you're managing your pleasures and they become permanent and social, which is super important. And that's so think about it this way. You never see in a beer commercial a dude alone in his apartment pounding a 12-pack.
No.
Right? No. You see the same guy opening a beer with his brother or friends because they're saying, in no small part, our beer plus your friends making memories equals enjoyment, which will lead you to happiness, and it's correct. And so you don't truncate that process. So that's enjoyment, right? So if there's something that really floats your boat and you really like a lot, if you're doing it alone, you're probably doing it wrong.
So pleasure alone can dysregulate, but pleasure, people, and memories.
Yeah, that's right. Now, there's all kinds of special cases here. There are certain things that you love that are better alone, like saying your prayers or perhaps walking in the woods. But if it's addictive and you're doing it alone, it's usually quite problematic. Also, you can have the wrong people around you. If all your friends are drunks, that's not exactly helpful, right? But this is a general rule.
Yeah.
I mean, without the special cases. That's enjoyment. And enjoyment, I meet tons of people who need more enjoyment in their lives. And they're unhappy because they don't have enjoyment. Many strivers, high achievers, don't enjoy their lives very much. They're really good at satisfaction, which is the joy that you get from an accomplishment after struggle. Strivers are unbelievably high in satisfaction. They might or might not be high in meaning, but they're really low in enjoyment. Enjoyment's hard for me. I don't have any hobbies. I've never had hobbies, right? I love my work. I got work, family, I work out, go to church. I mean, it's like, I'm old school, man. But the truth of the matter is that I want points on the board and progress all the time because I'm a satisfaction freak. Enjoyment's hard for me. I'm going to write a book at some point called How to Enjoy Your Life because I want to understand it. That's what it comes down to. Satisfaction is that second macronutrient I talked about. And that's really all about your achievements and accomplishments that you get real joy from after struggle. And the struggle is incredibly important. People who think that they're trying to get rid of their discomfort, they're making a big mistake. They won't get any satisfaction in life.
Amen.
I mean, if you know this, right? I mean, you're like, you do hard things. If I want to set a young dude on the right road, I'm going to tell him to do hard things. It's amazing that people want to suffer. They actually want to suffer. I mean, 2 of my kids are Marines. 2 of my 3 kids are Marines.
Wow.
One of them was a scout sniper, an enlisted scout sniper at Camp Pendleton down the road here. And it was hard. It was dangerous. It was a struggle for him, and that's why he did it. He's a changed man since he did that because of the struggle, because of the suffering. And this is a big problem with a lot of youth culture today that's been propagated by boomers like me, is trying to get the struggle out of young people's lives, which is basically taking the happiness out of their lives. Yeah. And then the third one, of course, is meaning, and that's the one that's in shortest supply, especially for adults under 35. Is this meaning crisis that we actually have. And meaning is just what we talked about. So when I'm talking to somebody and I see great unhappiness, I'm going to look for a blockage in one of those 3 things, an insufficiency in one of these 3 things, and I can almost always find it. I even have tests to find where people are weak. They can go to my website and they can there's something called the happiness scale on my website people can take to find out where their happiness macronutrient profile, where they need work.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
Why is a deficit of meaning more prevalent in people under 35? Is it just because they're chronically online?
They're chronically online because, number one, they've lived only in the hyper-focused engineering culture, right? And this is especially true for strivers. And so you find that the ones who have the biggest meaning crisis are college educated, which is pretty interesting, right? You don't see this big meaning crisis for young dudes who are going to trade school. You don't find it in the same way. People who are in the trades, people who are working on farms, they don't have it in the same way. People who go to college and are in this achieve, right? they're suffering a lot more. And then, of course, the more online and the more that you are, the more that you're actually addicted to machines, the more you're distracting yourself with technology, the worse it's going to get. And people under 35 don't remember the before times. Even you're a little older. You're just like, 8 years older, something like that?
Yeah.
You remember the before times.
Yeah.
You actually remember before you had a phone in your pocket.
Yes.
And that means that there's this vestigial memory of living in a particular way, right? There's that... And it's interesting because this is a kind of new problem. I'm going to make some assumptions about great grandfather Lugavere, right? So you probably came here from some godforsaken shtetl, right? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was but here's something he never said to great grandma Lugavere. He said, "Honey, I had a panic attack behind the mule today," and that's because his brain was working the way it was supposed to. His hypothalamic adrenal pituitary adrenal axis, his HPA axis, was not getting flooded for no apparent reason. It will if your brain is working wrong, if you're spending all the time on the left side of the brain. His life, here's the paradox, here's the weird paradox for people under 35, which is most of your audience to be thinking about. Your great-grandfather, his day-to-day life, his moment-to-moment life was pretty boring, but his life wasn't boring. His moment-to-moment was boring, but his life wasn't boring at all. A lot of young people today, their moment-to-moment is never boring because they're distracted, but their life overall is unbelievably boring.
Yikes.
That's a problem, right? So at the end of your days, so you think to yourself, like, if I were to die today, would I say, my life was actually pretty boring, as opposed to your grandfather says, my life was just full of stuff, man, and I had kids, and then there was a war, and then but moment to moment he was behind the mule, right? But his brain was working the way it was supposed to. His hemispheres were working in equilibrium with each other, and that's the reason that people under 35 are suffering the most, especially those in the hustle and grind academic culture, and those who are chronically online.
Our ancestors did the hard things because they had to. Today we have to make the concerted decision to. We have to choose to.
Yeah, think about what the gym is. Because I go to the gym every day. I missed 7 days in 2025, right? In the gym. Because, and part of it is just because that's mood management.
That's why you look so good.
Well, I don't know. I look good.
Look at that bicep vein.
Bicep vein.
You look good.
But working out, picking up heavy things and running around is just simulating manual labor. It's trying to get your body into the space that it was developed to be in the Pleistocene. 250,000 years ago, your brain was what it was going to be, and our bodies were mostly what they are today. And to be healthy, to do what we're designed to do, because this is what real good health comes from, is being in equilibrium with our design. And when you're sitting around on the couch and sitting in front of a monitor on a chair all day long, you're going to get out of equilibrium real fast. So you have to do something that looks weirdly like manual labor from thousands of years ago, which is, go pick up heavy things.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such a problem. But you have to, I think that there's real merit, real value to front loading your life with with difficulty. You don't want it on the latter end of your life.
Sort of, although I have to say that having challenges, real strong challenges over the course of your life really keeps you alive, and understanding that those challenges are going to change in a big way. You don't want the same... You're going to have different kind of challenges because your time horizon changes and your discount rate changes a lot too. You know how you discount the future? Well, if the future is shorter, and you find this, you're going to find this. I'm 61, so what am I, 18 years older than you are? And which is weird, man, because I feel like I'm 43 or 33 or something, and my wife says I act like a baby. So, but what you find is that you stop doing things that are hard that are going to pay off a really, really, really long time from now, and start doing things that are hard that are going to pay off right now. You start doing hard things now, right? That's kind of what you find that you're more interested in doing. And so I'm very unlikely to, I would never take a job that's a good thing to do. And earlier in my career...
When did that shift for you?
I noticed that shifted in my mid-50s is when I really started to see the difference between that. And a lot of people don't, because they get into these patterns and they're always putting off their future enjoyment, and because they think they're going to get so much more satisfaction. All this macronutrient stuff goes into this. And then what they find is that the day never comes. The day just never comes. And that's a really, really important thing, and I have to redesign people. So hyper strivers, what they'll do is they'll stay on the wheel, and they'll be making these big investments, like I'm going to start a company, and it's going to pay off in 15, 20 years. It's like, dude, you're 80. You're not going to be here to see it, and you're not enjoying it. But I don't know how to enjoy. And so I have to actually do boot camp and, basic human enjoyment is what it comes down to.
Yeah. How do you reconnect? How do you will yourself to reconnecting with your sense of meaning, your purpose on days when you don't even feel like getting out of bed?
So the answer to that is you actually need protocols. You need discipline is what it comes down to. Because back in the day, you wouldn't want to get out of bed, but you're going to starve. And so you have to do all these things. There's a lot of luxury that we have that hurts us because we don't have to do meaningful things if we don't want to. And the result of that is that we have to treat our lives. We have to treat our emotional lives. We have to treat the meaning in our lives in the same way that we would anything else that takes a tremendous amount of discipline. And then it gets easier with habits is what it comes down to. Protocols. I mean, Huberman talks about protocols all the time. I do too. And, I have these morning protocols. I have very strong 5 morning protocols. I have 9 evening protocols. And I'm a very disciplined science-based guy. I mean, I'm a behavioral scientist, retrofitted with neuroscience.
True academic.
Yeah, totally. But the reason is because I need to do that in my own life. I don't do that just because I like lists. It's because I actually need to do that. And that's what I wind up prescribing to a lot of young people today. I'll say, okay, over the next 60 days, here are the 5 things you have to do every morning. And then it becomes a habit. On average, a workout routine takes 42 days to become a habit. That's what we find, about 42 days. And I know actually I want somebody to get onto a workout routine. I'll say, okay, for the first 42 days, I want you to do the same thing 4 times a week for half an hour a day. Only 4 times a week, not more. Not 7 days a week, you're going to burn out. And not more than half an hour a day, but not less. And I want you to do basically 4 zone 2 cardio sessions a week for 7 weeks. That's what I want you to do. And then we're going to start to get creative. Why? Because I want to install the habit, right? And that's what it comes down to people who are in any sort of suboptimal lifestyle, anything that they're doing. You have to install a basic foundation of good habits that will lead them to be living the life that actually is going to lead to the outcome they want.
And what role does motivation play?
So motivation differs from person to person. Some people have a lot more inherent motivation than other people. And there's not a better or worse, believe it or not. I know some people who are highly disciplined and motivated people who are just miserable SOBs. Why? Because they're just working themselves to death. They're highly motivated to do something, but they're missing big chunks of their macronutrient profile. So they're disequilibrated. My wife, who's from Spain, right? She is less disciplined about a lot of things than I am, but she's a much happier person than I am. Is what it comes down to. And you would ask her, who's more motivated? She's like, my husband. He's like the most motivated person I've ever met. But my happiness is like 4 out of 10. She's 9.5. So, the truth of the matter is that you need a life that has flow to it as well. And it can't all be motivation. I mean, I realize that all the stuff on the internet today is about the more motivated you are, the better off you're going to be. But you got to find balance. You got to find a golden mean. Aristotle wrote about that.
Yeah, of course. Because motivation, I'm less motivated on the days that the weather isn't nice.
Yeah.
It's like you can.
In California, it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often, but it's like motivation there are so many intrinsic factors that influence the degree of motivation that I feel.
Yeah.
That it's like I feel like it's at the end of the day not something that any of us should rely on.
But still, you're a high achiever, meaning that even days when you feel less motivation, you still do, and that's a very important distinction, isn't it? What you feel and what you do. One of the characteristics of people who are low achieving individuals is that they do what they feel. One of the characteristics of high achieving individuals is they know that their emotions are liars, and they don't pay that much attention to how they feel.
Wow.
About your emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions are there for a reason, but emotions are not actually, they don't have any moral content. Emotions are just limbic sensations. They're produced to give you warnings and promises, things that are threats and opportunities. So pleasant emotions say there's an opportunity that you've ascertained and you should go approach it. Negative emotions saying there's a threat out there, so avoid that thing. That's all emotions are, right? But they lie to you all the time. They tell you like, boy, if she says yes to my marriage proposal, I'm going to be happy every day for the rest of my life, right? If I make $1 million, I'll be happy every day for the rest of my life. All that is an inducement for you to go out and get that prize. But the emotional information you're getting is a straight up lie. Mother Nature is lying to you. And people who are high achieving individuals, they have figured out that they're not going to believe all the lies. Now, when they feel crummy, no, it's just how I feel.
It's very James Bond.
Yeah, it's just how I feel. It's like, yeah, of course, yeah. I'm feeling sad today. Okay.
Still going to do the work.
I'm going to do the work because I know that's transient, and I know that's probably not even realistic. You know, it's I wake up in the morning going, oh, gratitude. And I get up 4:30 and I put on my clothes and I go to the gym.
That's how it's done.
It's how it's done. And again, you know, we could relax a little bit and maybe it'll be a little bit happier. But the truth of the matter is I don't fall prey to believing that my emotions speak truth.
Yeah, you can't be the bitch of your emotions.
Manage your emotions so they don't manage you.
Sometimes that's hard, though. I mean, I wake up sometimes and I am very. It's hard to peel myself out of bed. I just feel, unmotivated. I know I'm aware of the fleeting nature of motivation, but even so, I check my phone. I'm just like, oh, I gotta do everything I did yesterday again today. It's like how.
And yet your podcast keeps getting done. If you actually had a motivation problem, they would be like, where's Max?
True.
You keep doing this work. How many episodes do you have in the can?
Hundreds, 500 something, 500.
That's motivation.
Almost 600.
See, motivation is in the doing, not the feeling. That's the point. The point is not how you feel. The point is what you do. Like that's the proof of the pudding is in the eating. It's like show me the points on the board and then we'll talk. And you got the points on the board. Yeah. It's just that you're a mad scientist. And so you have high negative affect from time to time. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a compulsive creator. I was actually looking over a musical piece that I created 13 years ago. That's still on YouTube in the catacombs of my YouTube channel.
Really?
It's called How to Be Emotionally Stable Without Getting Bored. And it's an article that I read on a website called Thought Catalog 13 years ago. It's prose, it's not article's the wrong way to describe it. It was just like this really beautiful piece that I read on this website, this random website, and it read to me. It read as music to me, and so I turned it into a song of sorts on my YouTube channel. How to remain emotionally stable without getting bored, or how to be emotionally stable without getting bored. And I produced it 13 years ago before I went through what I went through with my mom and all that stuff. But it reminded me last night of my nature, and as I was listening to it, I was like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm just like feeling and putting out and feeling and putting out.
Right. And you're melancholic, naturally. You're a melancholic person, naturally. And part of the reason is because you have high negative affect. Clearly you're probably at the 85th percentile in negative affect, which is one of your strengths.
It's true,
actually. It just isn't fun. But that, again, Mother Nature doesn't really care if you're having fun.
Am I dysthymic? Am I like mildly depressed?
Probably. Yeah, probably. It's okay. And it's okay. I mean, that's how hypomania works.
Prone to nihilism.
Yeah, it's subclinical bipolar disorder. And that's prone to nihilism, prone to, dark moods, et cetera, but also prone to euphoria and ebullience and, at different times. And this is awesome. And that's just a normal kind of life for people who are taking a big bite out of life. And that one of the great things you will see as you get into your 50s and 60s is you're like, oh, okay. Okay, now let me lay this on you, okay? Because one of the big ways to find meaning is by leaning into your suffering, is not eliminating your suffering, not regretting your suffering, not running away from your suffering, is leaning into your suffering. And that's what a lot of people are horrible at. Like 55% of the students at many universities are in therapy, which is a lot. 55%.
Wow.
I mean, it's like I have nothing against therapy. I mean, psychiatric care has saved the lives of people in my family, but I mean, and so I say to my students, like, you're studying at Harvard. If you're not sad and anxious, you need therapy, right? So what are you going to do with it? Here's a Buddhist formula that I want to lay on Max Lugavere right now, because you're not going to suffer less. You're just not going to. And you're looking for the exits all the time because that's what we do, because we're entrepreneurial people and we're solutions-oriented people. It's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to find a lifestyle. I'm going to write a cookbook that's going to a life cookbook that's going to make it so that this suffering. So the Tibetan Buddhists say that suffering equals pain multiplied by resistance. Pain times resistance equals suffering. Now, pain and suffering are different. Pain is very acute. Suffering is a different kind of phenomenon, right? Here's the idea. You should have incredibly high pain from time to time, but not high suffering all the time. How do you do that? Not by eliminating suffering, but by lowering resistance. And to say, I accept it. To start each day to say, I'm grateful for all the cool things that are going to happen this day, because they're gonna. Like, I live a charmed life, so do you. But I'm also grateful for the things that are going to challenge me and bum me out today, because that's the source of my learning and growth. Bring it on. And then get out of bed. And you're going to see that what you've done is you've lowered your resistance on purpose. You've turned the dial manually. And your pain might be high. But here's how you know you're living a genius life. See how I did that?
I love it.
Yeah. Here's a genius life. When pain is high, suffering is not. And the reason is because resistance is low.
Wow.
That's how to do it.
I want to metabolize that. So, okay, suffering equals pain times resistance, and pain is inevitable.
Pain is inevitable, man. That's just going to cross us. You know, that's what we in statistics we call a Poisson process. That means just randomly coming into your world. Stuff's going to happen. You're going to have negative emotions. That's what keeps you alive, is negative emotions. You're going to have negative experiences. You're going to have conflict with other people. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have disappointments. You're going to have failures. If you're not, it means you're dead, and that's not the best alternative, right? You're going to have pain. And
guaranteed.
You can try to build your life to not have pain, but that's a life of complete mediocrity. A life without pain is a life without reward. The only way for you to get rid of the pain is to get rid of the reward. And you don't want that, because you want to win. You want to have you want the rewards. And so therefore you're going to be like, yep, cost of doing business. I say this to CEOs all the time, because I'm sort of the billionaire whisperer in my work. And these CEOs, they'll be like, I say, so how's your job? I'm like, oh. Nobody ever says, love it. You know, if they're being honest with me, they're like, it's just one problem after another. And I say, which day do you earn your salary? The day with no problems or the day with problems? The day with problems. That's the only reason. I mean, your dog could run a company if there were no problems in the company. The only reason you're valuable to the company is because of your worst day. Only on your worst day do you earn your salary. And in your life, it's your worst days where you're actually generating the value that make you who you are. That's what it comes down to, right? So therefore, no pain, no reward. You want high reward, you're going to get high pain. But you can choose how much suffering. And that depends on your resistance to that pain.
Wow.
If you say, bring it on, man, bring it on. That's what you're doing in the gym every day. You know, when you're under the bar, which, by the way, you're 43, you shouldn't be under a bar. You should be using dumbbells. Range of motion.
Fair.
Yeah. When I was in my 30s, I started going to these iron gyms and find the oldest dude, like those like downtown iron gyms. And I'd be like, I want to be lifting like you when I'm 75. Teach me. And they all teach you. There's like, take care of your joints. And one of the ways you do that is you don't bench press. You dumbbell press. Anyway, I digress.
No, interesting.
But that's the point. When you're doing something hard, it's like leg day. Everybody hates leg day, right? It's the suffering. I mean, the suffering is actually, it's not, the pain is high, but the suffering is low because you're not resisting. You're
Right.
in the gym is what it comes down to. There's no suffering in there. Pain is high. Pain is sky high. You think it's like you're going to barf, but the suffering is low because you have walked into the gym and you've turned your resistance practically to zero. That's the way to live your life.
Yeah. Wow. And you feel so much better on the other side.
So sometimes, I mean, I'm pretty sorted. I had a big leg day on I'm walking backwards down the stairs today, bro.
Dude, I've actually been loving leg day of late just because I've been getting really strong. It feels good, but it's not comfortable to get there. It's not a comfortable ride.
It's pain, but again, and we're kind of comfortable with that as bros, physically, right? Although, if pain is imposed upon you, I got back pain, I have lower back pain because I have 35-degree scoliosis, and I have L4, L5, L5S1, and it's a problem. And I know you've had your back fixed, right? That kind of pain is a much harder thing to non-resist, but the data are really clear on that too. Back pain actually gets worse when you resist it.
Interesting.
Yeah, you should not resist back pain either. Like filling yourself with analgesics and babying it and lying around, it'll get worse. It actually will get worse. So the whole point is this works on everything. Mental pain too. Mental pain. You know, I'm going to avoid mental pain. I'm going to stay away from people who bum me out. I'm not going to have arguments with anybody, for example. And there are lots of cases where that's smart. I mean, you shouldn't have political arguments because that's stupid. That's a waste of time. But the idea that you wouldn't go places where people are going to challenge you, that you're not going to be around anything that's awkward for you. For example, you're not going to go out on dates because you might get rejected and all that. Wrong. The question is how you resist, right? And if you don't resist the rejection that you actually that you experience, your suffering will be low when your pain is high. And that's how you know you're living a genius life.
Wow. Is it fair to say that you're defined by who you are on your worst days?
Yeah, well, that's for sure, because that's what actually we see. We see how you're behaving yourself when you're in pain, and that actually is a gauge of a lot of different things. Is what it comes down to. Emotional self-regulation, for example, whether or not when you're flooding, when your amygdala is flooding because you're sad or you're angry or afraid, whether or not that your amygdala is managing you, is what it comes down to. That's not necessarily the quality of the person, but it certainly has to do with the equanimity and the maturity that you have. This is why we avoid people who, when they flood, they freak. And it's like, right? When you have a friend or somebody like that, and the first time your friend is like, you're wigging out, and you're like, I don't know if I can handle this, man. That's what it comes down to.
So true.
When your boss screams at you, you probably never had a boss, right?
No, not really. Yeah, once.
And if you have a boss that screams at you, it's like, it's never the same.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I did have a job post-college where I did get in trouble once for saying something unintentionally stupid on air, but it didn't really escalate because it was a pretty innocuous mistake on my part.
If all the time you've spent on the air, if you've almost had problems once, dude.
I'm just living my truth, you know?
I know, but the truth does, it may set you free, but it can be trouble for other people.
Fair.
But again, I mean, the interesting thing about that, there's literature on who gets in trouble when they say something controversial. And here's the answer, is if you say things in love as opposed to hate, you almost never get in trouble. Even if it's something controversial, it's a mistake, or you have to apologize later for something. If you said it in love, you very rarely get canceled. That's what it comes down to. So therefore, everything that you say should be a gift and never a weapon. That's the rule. If everything on the Genius Life is a gift and never a weapon, then you don't really have to worry very much.
Yeah. Well, that describes my why. I mean, that's circling back to my why. That's
sure
why,
it is.
That's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, everything I say, everything I put out, like otherwise I would have no business doing this. You know, my whole thing is because I'm very empathetic. You know, I feel things when I'm driving my car around LA and I see, you know, I mean, I criticize the homeless problem in LA and you know what it's become, but when it comes to the individual, seeing somebody pushing a shopping cart across the street, I mean, it profoundly affects me.
Yeah.
And
there are ways to engage in that actually where you can the fact that you're somebody who is compassionate and not just empathetic.
What's the difference?
Oh yeah, so empathy is a horribly desiccated emotion. I mean, it's a virtue that actually leads to all kinds of harm.
Interesting.
Because what empathy is feeling somebody else's pain, and if it's by itself, you'll be paralyzed by somebody else's pain. You'll make it worse. You'll be worse for you. It'll be worse for them. And so the worst parents are empathetic parents, and they'll be feeling sorry for their teenagers and all that. No. That's not the way to do it. I mean, our culture, which is unbelievably empathetic, has actually ruined the lives of a lot of people in poverty, right? I mean, it's just held them to lower standards, treated them like liabilities to manage as opposed to assets to develop. Compassion recognizes what the problem is, feels the person's pain enough to be motivated to do something about it, comes up with real solutions, and number 4, a compassionate person has the courage and the means and the will to actually do that thing. And so great parents of teenagers, and I've had plenty of teenagers. I had 3 teenagers at once at one point, which was a super walk in the park, as you can imagine, that they don't like you a lot, but you're doing what they need because you love them is what it comes down to. And that's what we all should be doing all the time. It should hurt your heart when you see somebody who's actually poor, but you shouldn't be saying, well, completely unmotivated to make it better, right? And you should have opinions about what we need to do in our society. That's, you know, for their sake,
of course,
is what it comes down to. Because these are the people, absolutely. But we're such an empathetic, uncompassionate society that we're in a situation where that problem gets worse and worse and worse. And it's not worse for us. I mean, you drive past it and go, They're living it, man. I mean, they got rats running out of these homeless encampments. It's horrible for them. It's inhuman, and we shouldn't put up with it. But if we were compassionate, it would be a different kettle of fish at the public policy level.
I had never realized that there was like such a stark difference between empathy and compassion.
Paul Bloom at University of Toronto is the best voice in the world, a psychologist, a really distinguished psychologist. He has a book called Against Empathy.
Whoa.
Yeah. He's cool. He's a good psychologist.
But
he's pro-compassion. And compassion, by the way, passion means to suffer. So the Passion of the Christ, that movie by Mel Gibson, the passion is the suffering. That's what it's about. That's what it means. Compassion means to suffer with somebody.
Wow.
I'm going to suffer with you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be handcuffed. I'm not going to be able to act. On the contrary, real compassion leads to real action, notwithstanding the costs. That's tough. That's flinty, man. That's hard.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah.
And so empathy is just like empty, like just you're observing, but you're not really like.
It's one quarter of compassion. It's just like the feeling part. Feelings. There's a problem. If you're just empathetic, you've stopped at your limbic system. If you're compassionate, you take it all the way to the prefrontal cortex and you act.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. Arthur Brooks. Thanks for coming out.
Are you kidding me? I love being with you.
Same.
Our time goes so fast.
So fast. I'm so excited for your new book.
Thank you.
I love how you just you pump them out. So full of wisdom and insight. You just became a contributor for the Free Press, which is badass.
They're great. They're great. It's fun. Having fun. I get to write things. I get to write jokes in my column. It's just really fun. And then we're at CBS too, because the Free Press and CBS are aligned now.
That's right.
They're under the same umbrella, and so I'm a CBS contributor in Happiness.
Oh, amazing.
Which I really love. Really love that too.
CBS, and you've got your own podcast now.
Yeah, Alpha Hours with Arthur Brooks, where every week we can do, a lot of it is sort of psychopathically looking at the camera and talking about big ideas, but occasionally have conversations as well. Super fun.
No hobbies, but the most prolific.
Yeah, and I teach still. I'm teaching at Harvard, and that's great. I have the best students in the world.
Damn.
Yeah. Thank you, Max, for your work. And when I do have free time, I listen to The Genius Life.
We love it. Well, thanks for coming out. Just remind listeners where they can connect with you on social media, how they can consume your content, where they can pick up your book.
Yeah. So all the stuff that I do is available at arthurbrooks.com. The book is where books are, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any place they do that. I have a column at the Free Press, as you mentioned. I'm on all the socials. I have lots and lots of content that's original on socials, especially Instagram. So that's where I do a lot of the stuff, and I test ideas, et cetera, and people can interact with me there. And if they ask me questions, I'll probably answer.
Amazing. Thanks for coming out. Love you, brother.
Thank you. Love you too.
Thank you, guys. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that may benefit from it. And wishing you all the very best. Peace. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.